Hey everyone, Greg here. As you may know by now, I'm the co-founder and CEO of TripShock, an online reseller for water sports and tours. For the past 12 years, we've had the pleasure of working with hundreds of operators across the country, and we're looking to grow our community. It's free to sign up, and you only pay when we bring you confirmed bookings. We'll help you reach new customers, fill empty seats, and grow your business like so many have done with us over the years. Head over to partners.tripshock.com to learn more about our program, read testimonials, or speak directly with our supply team. As always, thank you for listening and enjoy the show.
They come to relax, enjoy the beach, have fun, and spend money. And that's where we come in. This is the Awkward Watersport Guys podcast. Find out tips on the best ways to market and operate a water sports business. If you're a water sports operator, you need to grow your brand, operate more safely, upgrade your operations, and of course, increase bookings. We're industry veterans, broadcasting from Destin, Florida. This is the Awkward Watersport Guys podcast. And this is Kevin O'Neill and Greg Fisher.
What's up, guys? This is episode 35 of the AWG podcast. Today, we are joined with Rachel Dickey. She is the VP of Partner Suppliers, or VP Partner Supply TripShock, right, Greg? And Natasha Williams-Baker, who is the founder, owner, CEO of Sup Pup in Fort Lauderdale. And we are tackling a subject that so it was like a little awkward for us to talk about, right? I mean, everything's awkward for us because we're the Awkward Watersports Guys, but it's women in water sports, a traditionally male-dominated industry, and I think it's an important conversation we need to have.
Well, I mean, part of our mission, Kevin, is to bring more people into water sports, educate the ones that are in this industry, make it better. And the only way we're going to make it better is if we're going to grow it. And growing it does mean bringing different people into this industry. So what better way to start is with highlighting and emphasizing women in water sports and having the conversation of why don't we have more women in water sports? You know, what is the, you know, what can we do to encourage female employees of our of companies to get their captain's license or start a business. And there's just so much opportunity in this industry. So, you know, that's kind of the reason behind it. And Rachel works with me at TripShock. She's our VP of supply and product. And this is a conversation that her and I've had in the past is, you know, we meet so many great business owners. Sometimes it feels like, you know, women don't get the spotlight as much as the men do. So we talk a lot about on today's show about what are some ways that women water sport operators can grow, can mentorship and things like that. So it's good. It's a great show.
Yeah. So anyway, guys, this is a super great show, obviously, because all our shows are super great, but didn't get to tackle what I really wanted to talk about because once Greg brought this to my attention, was like, why isn't there more women in water sports? My brain just starts going, right? I start going down all these weird pathways. Like, yeah, it's so weird. Like, why aren't there more women in water sports? Then I started thinking like, well, you know, is it a blue collar thing? You know, is it like you don't see women in like construction that much? You know, no women plumbers. But and then we started talking about it being like a systemic problem. And I'd go like mentally, I would go deep dive on fucking anything, like how I tie my shoes. But it got me thinking, like, there's no women in bank robbery, right? You never see women bank robbers, and there's no gatekeepers there. There's nobody stopping a woman grabbing a gun and robbing a fucking bank or committing armed robbery, right? So, I mean, not to say that there's not systemic misogyny within these industries. I believe that there is to a certain degree. I just got to say, ladies, is that grab the gun, go commit armed robbery, metaphorically, in water sports. And that's what this whole show is about. This entire show is about saying like, hey, you have a seat at this table. You have a seat at the head of the table. You are, not that, again, I'm not the fucking ambassador of water sports, but go out there and get it. Because as we talk about on the show a ton, 90% of this shit is like marketing. And as we found talking to other owners, there are a lot of women in the background that are doing a lot of like the HR administration and the marketing. So it's like, yeah, you don't have to take a spotlight or take a second seat to anybody, and you can and should be in the spotlight, because if you're selling the shit, then you're the fucking beast at the table. So what do you say, Greg? You ready to get awkward?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's go.
All right, everyone. We're here with Natasha Baker, founder of Sup Pup out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Also joining us is Rachel Dickey, VP of Supply at TripShock. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Hey, thank you for having me here.
Our show today is going to be on women in water sports, and there's a lot of stuff to unpack here today. But before we get started, I'd like to introduce both of you to our listeners, hear a little bit about both of your stories. And Natasha, I'm going to start with you. So give us a little introduction about you, your business, and how you became a woman in water sports.
I'm the founder of Sup Pup Paddleboard with my partner in crime, my corgi, Mr. Beaches. We've been in business for about 3 years now down in the Fort Lauderdale canal area. We started doing tours. Well, actually, we started just paddleboarding there about 5 years ago. Actually, almost 6 years ago now, because he's 7. So we started paddleboarding for fun. And eventually, a few years later, it turned into like a side hustle. Everybody down in Fort Lauderdale has a side hustle. And then it turned into a full-fledged business. I decided to try and, devote 100% of my time to it to see what I could do with it, business. And here we are.
Natasha, did you say corgi?
Yes.
A dog? How do you pay him like his dividends or whatever?
Well,
like,
you know what?
I mean, is it dog treats or straight cash?
I make homemade treats.
Dogecoin, maybe?
So he's a little spoiled. He gets homemade treats.
Oh, wow. Let me know if you need any other partners. I'm in. I want homemade treats.
Rachel, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I joined the TripShock team. I guess it's been about 2.5 years ago now, and made an interesting transition from a private practice legal career where I did growth strategy consulting and worked with a lot of different businesses, and just really wasn't that happy in my job and was surrounded by people that weren't that happy in their jobs. And so tourism was just something that's really appealing to me and something that personally I loved. And like Natasha, every vacation my family took was to the beach. I mean, that's what we did. It's what I looked forward to every year, and being out on the water. I think the first time I really got into water sports was when I was 19. I moved to Newport Beach, California, and started working at a surf shop, and just, have been in love ever since. And now I've found my family at TripShock, so I can't complain.
Let's jump right in here. So going to be discussing, women in water sports, but more importantly, how we can grow our industry, become more diverse. And as we discussed yesterday in our pre-show, that this is a very male-dominated industry. And, Natasha is a very unique case. The fact that she is a person of color and she's a female, and she's thriving in a market that is predominantly, white male dominated for water sports. And, the question I have for both you ladies is, what are we doing wrong? Like, why aren't we getting more women into water sports?
That's a deep question, Greg.
Yeah. Greg's no foreplay with Greg there. God, man.
Ease us into it.
You got to peel the Band-Aid off, and then we can grow.
No fucking small talk with this guy. Hey.
I personally think so. When people think of water sports, they think of boats, and they think of boats as, expensive, right? That's an expensive toy for a lot of people. So I think some of that, the barrier to entry is financial as far as it's concerned. I myself, personally, what I did was, in the beginning, I had 2 boards. Truthfully, I started. I was like, forget it. Like, you just start somewhere. And I wasn't take a loan. I wasn't in a position to try to take any type of loan or anything like that. There were times I was borrowing boards from my neighbors. If I had more than 4 people, I would have to borrow boards. And I do think that we need to give alternative resources for women as far as trying to get segue into the industry. It doesn't have to be taken out a $10,000 loan, and you build it, they will come. You can do gradual. It can be gradual progression.
What about you, Rachel? What do you think?
Well,
go to law school and realize what a drag that is.
Yeah. Hey, that's one option. You can realize that, money doesn't buy happiness, I guess. But, I think that Natasha hits on an issue that is important or impacts female entrepreneurs, which is access to funding, right? I mean, that's certainly an issue, but I think even before we get to that stage, there is a problem that there aren't enough women sitting down and saying, I wish I had the funding to start a water sports business, because they're not even thinking of that necessarily as a possibility for themselves. Maybe because they haven't been exposed to the industry, maybe because they grew up in a family where only the men drove the boats. And that's a reality of a lot of situations. I mean, I was doing some research. There are 7 times more male boat owners than women. So it's 7-1 in boat ownership, right? And so it makes sense then that you would have less women going into actually trying to start water sports businesses if they don't even own boats to begin with and they're underrepresented, in the boating community. So I think that figuring out how we get more women driving boats, interested in it, and interested in water sports as a hobby is a good place to start. And I guess that's a question I direct to Natasha. What is it? What got you to that point where you were thinking, I want to buy paddleboards and start this company? I mean, how did you get to get there in the first place?
It was the dog. So part of that was I was in corporate. I was teaching at that point. I was teaching elementary school and not corporate. I was teaching elementary school, and I was just really frustrated because I'm in a building. I had to be there at 7:00 in the morning. I'm in a building 8 hours a day. I love kids. I don't want to be around them all day long. And so I actually used paddleboarding as a sense of self-care. In the evenings, I'd paddle a lot more. On the weekends, I'd paddle. And we got really known in the area, especially because I did have Mr. Beaches on board. And people were like, oh, my God, that dog, he's so cool. Does he like it? And talking and asking questions. And it was actually a suggestion of a friend to start, a paddleboard company as Mr. Beaches as the kind of like the brand of the business. So it was, I don't want to say a fluke, but it just grew out of something that I was already passionate about. One of the things I would like to mention as far as women in water sports, I'm not talking about necessarily the boating industry, but I will say 90% of my customers that book with me are women. So there are women out there that love to be on the water, want to get on the water. Again, we do have to discuss how do we get them to know that this is actually a viable, career or business that they could start.
I agree with everything you're saying, and 100%. I also believe, coming from where I came from, and a lot of the entrepreneurs I know in the space, where they came from too, is in Key West, it's like you have two jobs you're going to do. You're either going to work on the water or you're going to be a bartender. That's it. So there's actually a lot of women in the industry, at least in Key West. I can't speak to South Florida. And I know on North and up here too, there's a lot of female mates. And I think that's a huge starting point, because I think you're probably the exception, Natasha. And aside from being a woman, I think you're the exception into how you got into the industry as like a startup entrepreneur starting a water sports company. I know in North Florida that happens a lot too. In the Keys, in Hawaii, there's a lot of provenance to this. Like, people start off as a mate, then they get their captain's license, they save their money, they buy a shitty boat, they get a charter, like they scale. And I think there's the real jump off point. And I think there needs to be an encouragement in the industry of pushing your mates to become captains. And this is what you grow a captain, you grow a team, you grow somebody from the ground up. And I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but there is definitely misogyny that happens in the industry. There's, I've heard it 100 times. Yeah. On the parasail boat. Oh, what happens if, they go down and the girl needs to jump in and swim in and get the customer? Like, fucking go get them. I mean, if I'm the captain on the boat, I'm not, and you're a female mate on my boat. Like, I mean, unless you're actually like, I can't get them onto the boat, there's been times when male mates can't get them onto the boat, whatever. So it's got to, in my opinion, just aside from that, it's got to start there as owners of businesses. I know Lazy Dogs, Sue, like almost her entire staff is female. And, I know a couple of the ladies that work for her, and they're like, I mean, they're stone cold water sports people. They're like, I know one of her employees, Peyton, she's like tried to move Lazy Dogs over into different markets. And like, she's probably going to do something in water sports as, that upper echelon, that next level, and working their way up. So I think it starts with us as owners to promote having women in water sports, because this, to me, it's nonsensical. Like I also
believe it's somewhat systemic. Like I've talked to water sport operators that, I mean, this is kind of silly to even say this, but I've heard them say it, that they want, men on the docks and they want women in the booth. That's what the conversation is. And it's systemic. Like they have an idea of like, obviously men on the dock because, they're having to lift things and obviously it's just all bullshit, right? Like, but that's why we need to have these conversations like we're doing now to let everyone know that we're never going to see women leading companies if our thoughts are, well, they're just going to do admin work.
Hey, I want to throw something out there that I do have, as a general rule, she's just a better closer so I have 3 dock hands that will handle phones. They do both. And 2 of them are men and they suck on the phones. They cannot close. Like every time Isabella's got the phones, it's like boom, boom, boom. She's taking booking. But at 4:00, when the boats start to come in and she's like, I don't want to sit here. Like the phones aren't ringing. I'm like, want to get outside. I'm like, go outside, go grab boats, dock boats. I don't want you sitting there milking my clock either. Like, go get something done, man. You know what I mean? And she's like, oh, I'm docking boats. I'm like, cool. That's what I want. Like, I don't want you to be just pigeonholed into this. Like, I'm glad if you're great on the phone, that means you're great with people that are coming in on the boats, which means that if you can drive and slip that boat, then now my customers are getting a better experience all the way around because you're the total package. And so 1, we need to be more opening, but 2, it's like I get these calls nonstop when I hire for both reservations and dock hands. Like all the girls all want to be in the booth. And I mean, I'm not going to be like, well, why don't you want to drive boats? So like, I don't know how to drive a boat. Well, okay, so what? Neither did I at one point in time. So, it's up to us as owners to really foster that environment of inclusivity.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like you don't want to go to a party that you weren't invited to, or maybe you were invited, but nobody really wants you there. And so if that's the way you feel when you show up to the dock at work, or that the general perception is that it would be a preference to have a man do it, I mean, that's not really an environment that anybody wants to be in. Sure, there are some of us that are willing to say we don't care and show up anyway, but we have to change that perception of, even if you don't know anything, if you want to learn, that you'll be accepted and, given the opportunity to learn and increase your experience, and it's that it starts at a very, very ground level, even in personal situations, not just, between business owners, but making people feel included. And it's okay to not know everything, is a big thing too.
Yeah, I just feel like, I do feel like women have a way with, being empathetic and with people that are maybe new or trying to learn something different. We have a different perspective about that. One of the ways I learned to drive a boat is the Palm Beach Boat Show. the first day, this was years ago, but the first couple of days, mornings, like it would be like $25 and it'd be an hour-long class. You'd learn how to drive and back up a single engine or twin engine outboard boat. You know, things like that. Some of the owners can maybe open up their space for women, you know, and get them out on the water to be able to do that. Me, myself, as far as water sports, what I try to do, especially like with my paddleboard yoga classes, for instance, I've taken several different yoga instructors and taught them how to paddleboard and how to get people out on the board and how to conduct a yoga course on the way, even though I myself am not a yoga instructor, but just giving them access to that. So there's different ways that we can do it. It doesn't have to necessarily be boating, right? Because it be kayaking, and paddleboarding too is included in that. And we also talked about jet skis too. So there's different ways that we can, you know, get included with, but it has to be an intentional purpose. You know, you have to really actually want to do it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's important, Natasha. It's like you have to want to do it. Well, I don't think there are enough women that want to do it yet. And so how do we get more people interested? And I know, Natasha, when we all talked yesterday, you mentioned how you got exposed to water sports through like a surfing camp that brought that to your life and let you, you know, see that it was accessible. And so I think some of it goes back to just, you know, operators, maybe you look up local nonprofit organizations that are dealing with young women in your area and you invite them and teach them how to use boats and say,
better looking dudes. I mean, we are fucking an ugly bunch, man.
Yeah,
My God, Jesus Christ, man. Fat and drunk. You need some guys with six packs out there.
Lose some weight, sober up, and then invite the nonprofits.
We'll get some ladies out there. Oh, shit. No.
You know, but I think we're talking about something that needs to start at like the very most basic level is we have to get more women driving and girls driving boats, you know, renting jet skis. When the whole family's going out, it's not just the guys that go, right? I mean, you have to make it accessible and make people feel like it's a community that they can be included in and a part of. It's not just a boys club. And that starts very young, I think, and giving people access to the option to even engage in water sports.
Yeah, because I do feel like, and it's going to sound weird, that being a woman of color in this industry has been an advantage for me. You know, I stand out. People are like, oh, she must really know what she's doing, right? She has a dog. She's on a board. You know, I just feel like people are drawn more to me because I am a woman, and they feel, let's say, safe with me, and also like I'm not so commercialized, you know. So I think if you get into the industry, I do think that is an advantage for women, because we're going to attract more women customers who are like consumers right now, especially who are the ones that book their family vacations. It's the mom, it's the women. So if they see a woman on a paddleboard with a dog, you know, and they're going to be like, okay, that's the one I want to book with.
I agree. I love it. Cause it's like when people like, I always feel like that's the secret to our company's success. Like every time I always look at moms, kids, ladies on the boat, like I market to women 100%. Like, and it's always there. The women always call and make the decisions because, you know, and it's so weird too. Like I can't wrap my head around that. It's like, yeah, you know, like you want to go out there, you want to like, I just want to be like, here's the keys, girl. Like, don't be afraid of it. Like, go drive that boat. You know what I mean? Like, but then Larry, the husband, the fat drunk, you know, and he comes back fucking bombed. She's completely sober. And I'm like, listen, I think maybe you should have been the one behind the wheel here, not Larry. You know, he just drank a half a bottle of whiskey at Crab Island. You know, I think you would have done a better job. He just smashed right into the dock. That'll be $500, lady.
You know, so the 2 points I want to touch on. yeah, it's branding and marketing, and just making sure that you, when women, or, you know, if we're mentoring someone or you're trying to bring them into industry, that they have a clear vision of what their market or brand is. That's very important so that you can stand out within this crowded industry. And also that will help you going forward so you know who you are. You know, so you're not always trying to compete with everybody else. You know what your lane is, and you're going to stay in that lane. And even if someone comes with something else, you're still going to be true to who you are. And that's one thing, you know, that I try to do. With some people that come with me and they're like, oh, what about this? Or what about, I'm like, that's not really what mine is about. And so I'm not really interested in that. Like, I would never do dip. That's not my thing. You know, we now do kayaks, you know, and we do a small boat rental too. But that's kind of within that brand. You know, we do paddleboard yoga, obviously expanding off of the paddleboard, you know, entry into wellness now. And that's something that's big and that's important.
How's that doing, if you don't mind me asking? I've always been interested in paddleboard yoga.
It's doing very well. Like, people, it flows with the industry, but a lot of people are interested in, you know, doing paddleboard yoga. We have my current instructor is a certified paddleboard yoga instructor and a neonatal yoga instructor. She's done some paddleboard yoga instructors with expecting mothers. So, yeah.
Oh, it's awesome. I've got an idea. What do you think about this one? Paddleboard powerlifting. So you get some fucking bros out there on a paddleboard like, oh, fucking doing squats out there.
This one, we're doing on Wednesday is Cinco de Mayo. We're doing Cinco de Paddle. So after paddleboard, we're going to have some margaritas. So there's things you can play with and market yourself. The other thing I was going to say is, last year I had, 2 14-year-old girls. They came out and they paddled with me and worked in the area, and I hired them as interns. So they were 2 young girls of color, and when I had big groups, they would help me get people on the board. You know, they knew how to, and people had to stand up, and, you know, that's the way to start too. Think about that. Some of there's youth out there doing this summer and they want a job and they put something on their college application or whatever, and you can start small like that. You don't have to pay that. You don't have to pay them every day. You know, they don't have to come out every day. Maybe when you have a big group or a special event. And that is a way to bring, you know, young women into the industry too.
Yeah, you know what I like, Natasha, about your brand is that, you know, you're a women-led business, and a lot of the products that you create do focus on things that you seem to be passionate about. I'm pretty sure it's by design that maybe your products are focusing more on women because those are the products that you probably like doing. That's totally fine. That if just because, you know, you create a business and create a business for things that you're passionate about. And yeah, it's probably going to be people that are like you know, that are going to enjoy those products. But I think we need more of that in water sports. You know, we need more products like we hardly have any on TripShock, to be honest, like that are very women focused products. Like paddleboard yoga is like a perfect example of an activity.
Yeah, actually, that's one that I actually need to add. I get what you, Rachel, about that.
Yeah.
So can I switch gears here? So Rachel, I love blood and guts, right? If it bleeds, it leads, right? So I mean, you're the product onboarding person at TripShock, right? So how many of these fucking idiots have you had to deal with? Like, I mean, I know that there's some throwbacks in our industry that are like, what? Yeah. Like, there's gotta be, you don't have to name any names because I know, but there's gotta been some pretty good, like, crazy people.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe I'm not shocked as easily because I came from a very male-dominated industry, being a lawyer. But, I mean, it is very, for me to do my job, which involves a lot of going to destinations. I mean, I have a lot of meetings on the docks. I meet with all different types of water sports owners. And as a woman, you always think, are they joining TripShock because they are, I don't know. I have a lot of things go through your head with the way that different people interact with you when you're trying to sell them on something. Let's just put it that way.
Oh man.
But what I find is that a lot of these companies that have very prominent, male owners also have a female owner behind the scenes. And when it gets down to brass tacks, the person that I'm dealing with or that my team is dealing with are the women that are running the show behind the scenes that maybe people don't even realize are also a majority, are 50-50 owners in some of these companies, or maybe they're the ones managing the day-to-day, right? And we have to start spotlighting these women. Because if you assume that just because the husband's name's on the boat that he's running the show, you're probably wrong in a lot of scenarios, right? So to start spotlighting these women that are behind the scenes, and these women need to be the ones that are doing what Natasha's doing and being the mentor roles. Because look, men make great mentors, and we have to encourage men in the industry to mentor women, or we won't have enough mentors. But we really, the best mentors are the women who are already here. And there are some amazing women in water sports, and there's some efforts being made that I've seen to start recognizing more women in water sports. But, all those women that are running things behind the scenes, we need to have them on the panel discussions. We need to have them joining up with, organizations like TripShock that are interested in creating diversity and inclusion in our industry. And, letting them kind of be the star of the show for a little bit instead of hiding behind the scenes. And I don't mean to be, overly broad in that statement. I know there are women in the spotlight as well, but we have to do a better job at recognizing all of the great women that are already here. And how do we help them be better facilitators of this effort?
Oh, Greg, oh man, I can't remember her name, the CEO of Peak Pro.
Rizwana.
Yeah, she went after like Max from Fair Harbor. Like, man, that argument that they had on the at Arrival, man, that was awesome. And you're right. Those are the type of, that's obviously it's not water sports, but still in the space are the people that need to be highlighted. But give us some time. I think we're now just finally galvanizing as an industry. So we're not having, like, historically the industry really hasn't had talks about anything, So I think we're getting, especially with stuff like this and conversations with you guys on the show, I think we're getting off to the right foot. So if the industry that's just now finally starting to get a little bit of cohesion, I think that we're going to be able to highlight women in water sports because it's going to be like undeniable, right? You can't not highlight somebody who's fucking tearing shit up, right? Like Rizwana, she like went out there and it was on and challenged. Like all the rest of the dude just sat there like, I'm scared, but she fucking went after him, and it was and I just think we're going to see more stuff like that and more ladies. I don't know what the nomenclature is. More gals.
No, okay, guys.
I've been saying guys the whole time. I have no idea how to pronoun anything anymore. I just
You're not saying boys though.
Hey, you.
You know what? My selling point going from Fair Harbor to Peak was that Peak was a woman co-founded business. And I will never leave them. They've been really good to me, but just being able to support her and what she's doing has been a selling point for me and anyone Sometimes I do mentor people, mostly men that coming into the water sports industry. I always, steer towards peak. They're not, they're not perfect, but just being able to support them and just seeing how they've helped me has been amazing. And the same thing with you, me joining TripShock had everything to do with Rachel.
So one good example of what you were talking about as far as emphasizing is, Kevin and I, if you look at the people that have spoke on our show or who we interviewed, we try to mix it up. Like, if we have to find a woman expert in something, like we had Kaylee in Instagram, we had Marika from Von Mac on the show. Like, we're trying to emphasize women in this industry and diversification, and that's by us doing our part of making sure that we have women on the show, even though it is sometimes harder to find women to interview because our industry is male dominated, and that's who we know as far as the topics that we want to discuss. But we're looking a little deeper and trying to find those women and spotlighting them just to show that we are doing our part of emphasizing and bringing them more in. We want to make it more normal.
Natasha, what's your last name?
It's Williams.
I don't even think we said that in the show.
I think I said.
Whoa.
I think I said Baker.
Well, it's okay. So Baker is my maiden name, and Williams is my name, even though I'm divorced. So
I can't. I'm looking for you on Facebook, and I just sent Rachel a friend request, and now I gotta find Natasha Baker, so I can send you a friend request.
This is the thing. I have 3 book pages. So Mr. Beaches has one. The business has one, and then I have a personal. Like, we're all over the place. So is that it?
Well, you guys got to join. You guys got to join the group and get on the conversation, because there. I mean, again, it's mostly male dominated, but there's a good number of women in our group, and they are speaking up, and they are talking, and I mean, we're definitely. We're fucking an inclusive party. I like the way Rachel put that, like invited to the party, but not really like welcome. That's literally how I feel at every party I show up to. They're like, "Hey, where'd you fucking come from, buddy?" Then I fall through the table, and they're like, "Oh, but see," and I'm like, "Well, that's why I'm not invited."
Me and Rachel have.
I know that feeling. What I'm saying,
because even though we might be invited, we're going to go to the party, and we're going to show up. So
you're invited. Yeah. You're invited.
Hey, that's a perfect way to end the show, too. Well, yeah. Rachel and Natasha, thank you so much for joining the podcast. I think it was a very awesome conversation. Natasha, if anyone listening wants to hear more about you or what you do, where can they get more information?
You can visit my website, suppup.ftl.com, or they can also find me and Mr. Beaches on Instagram, which is suppup.ftl.
Mr. Peaches, I love it. Or Mr. Beaches. That's the best name ever.
I would bring him up, but he's sleeping now, and he'd probably get mad if I woke him up. So.
Well, I can be reached if you're interested in talking about joining TripShock. We obviously love working with women-owned businesses and all water sports businesses, but I can be reached at rachel@tripshock.com. And you can learn more about, what we're doing in the industry. And we're actually going to start to share a lot more industry news and insights and resources for the community on the site as well. And just visit partners.tripshock.com to learn more about what we're up to.
I was just looking at Mr. Beaches. I was like, oh my God, with the bow tie and his smile. Oh my God, I love this. You're so fabulous. Oh my Lord. Oh my God, I love it. So I send friend requests, and then you're going to get group requests, so you guys can come in and kick the shit and come into the party that you're both more than welcome to and invited to. And I'm glad we could get. I had the pre-show jitters on this one. I really did. You can ask Greg. I was like, man, I part of my shit on this show is I fucking make fun of everything. And I'm like, man, I can't like come in and start making fun of these guys, Not yet. Now that we're in, like, fucking, I'm going to talk shit. We'll have you back.
You can make fun of us, but don't hit on us. That's my advice for all you men out there in water sports. Just resist the urge to hit on women that come and want to work with you or comment.
I've been married for 20 years, and I fucking don't know how I got my wife because I got fucking horrible game. Trust me. Not going to happen over here, lady.
This has really been amazing. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this, very important issue and how we can move forward. Yeah. So I'm excited working with you guys in the future.
Well, thank you.
Awesome.
Well, I appreciate everyone coming on the show here. And for all you listening, keep it awkward.
You've been listening to the Awkward Watersport Guys podcast. If you're in the water sport industry, this is the podcast that brings the business perspective to parasailing, jet and ski boat rentals, sailing, snorkeling, and everything else. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show. Be sure to sign up to our email list at watersportpodcast.com and subscribe in your favorite podcast app. We'll see you next time, and thanks for listening.